Okay. Um, so a few things then to talk about with the mashup problem set. Don't skip this part. I know you might be in a hurry to get this thing done and to do articles and search, but you will need to know all of this stuff. And this is a guided walkthrough of all of the things that you will need to be working with in some detail later on. So again, it may not totally make sense to you, even if you only understand 30 to 40% of it. Go back here, do it once, and then remember the things that they talk about so that if you need to go back and say, oh, yeah, they talked about that, here's where it was, you can go back and review it. So, this is what you should kind of be going through and looking through. And this is part of part one, okay? Search, you should understand what search does because you're going to be implementing articles and search. Those are the two things, okay, that you have to do. So a couple of things that I want to point out. So when you have worked normally with an HTML form, normally if you wanted to create a text box, you would just say form name equals and then whatever the name of that box is, and then you'd say type equals text, and then this is what it would look like in an HTML page. It would say name, and then you'd have like a field where you could type stuff in, right? And then when you click the submit button, this gets sent to application.py via post. Application.py can grab it by saying request.forms.get symbol. And as long as this matches that, then we're good, right? The name that you use here is what you would put into request.forms.get symbol, okay? Now, what we're doing is we're working with something that gets submitted through the URL via get. So if I go to www.google.com, this kind of takes us to Google. And that's the URL that, is Google's URL. But if we wanted to type in some additional information, we could type in search, which is a route that their application.py grabs. I don't know if they're using Flask, they might be using something else, but if we're using Flask, application.py waits for this route, search, question mark, Q equals, and then some search term. So if I type that in, search, question mark, Q equals cats, notice that it returns a search results page with it typed in as if I had typed it into the search field. So this URL sends that information over to their routing application. And their routing application grabs this by essentially, in Flask, we would say request.args.get, not forms, args, because this comes in as an argument to the URL, args.get q. Okay? So a lot of web pages will send information directly in the URL. So let me give you another example. This is Amazon. If I go to Amazon and I type in cat beds, it's a two-word query. But you'll notice that what happens up here is it goes to www.amazon.com/s. What do you think S stands for? Probably search. They call theirs S. Google calls theirs search. Again, question mark, K equals cat plus beds. So if we were going to grab this using Flask, we would say request.args.get what? K. Because theirs is K equals. K is just the name, whatever name they're giving to that field that essentially you've populated by typing into this thing here. It's submitting it, but not via post. It's submitting it via get. And when you submit a request via get, it's visible in the URL. And they might do that because you can bookmark that search. And so if I hit that search again, it'll search again for cat bed and get me the newest results that say, or for cat beds, right? If you were setting something like a password, get would be a bad method to do logins because then the person's password would be visible in the URL. You'd want to either hash it to something so that it's secure. So you'll see some long, long string of random characters, or just send it via a post request. But when you go through Amazon and you look at all of these different web pages, this is not an HTML page that lives necessarily on Amazon. Like nobody just created this web page specifically for this self-warming bed. What they did is they created a template and they have placeholders that fill in the image, they fill in the name, they fill in the current price. This price fluctuates, regularly, like every minute, potentially, prices on Amazon could change. And imagine if you had to go in and then change those web pages individually every single time for like the hundreds of thousands of pages that are on Amazon. So there is no single page on Amazon for every product. There's just one template, and they're a vast database of products and names and prices, and they just get filled in on the fly. That's how most big websites operate today. They all work off of a database, and that's essentially what you've been doing. Come to find out, actually, that cats actually have a higher resting body temperature than humans do. Like cats are actually comfortable at about 114 degrees. So, and nothing gets that hot. So cats are constantly trying to get warm. That's why they sleep on your lap. They try to sleep on things that are warm. And so you can get a self-warming bed which actually gets up close to that temperature, and it makes the cat more thermally comfortable. So that's why self-warming beds are a thing. Just so you know. All right, so back to lookup. So lookup returns a dictionary. And so this is not it. This API key is built into your index. If you look in your index.html on line 17, it should be pre-filled. So you don't need an API key for this problem set. Articles, you're going to need to do articles, and you're going to need to do search. So if we take a look at articles, and again, like always, you should look at Zamila's walkthrough. You should do articles so that it outputs a JSON array of objects, each of which is an article for geo, where geo is passed into articles as a get parameter. Geo would be what this is in red, essentially. Okay? This is what the query looks like. Articles, question mark, geo equals. So accessing geo is as simple as request.args.get geo. And that will get this thing here. Okay? So you have a couple of jobs in articles. What you want to do is grab whatever this value is for geo from request.args.get. Then you want to pass that right off to lookup. Okay? Lookup will take geo. So get it out of the form, pass it off to lookup. Lookup returns a dictionary. And you need to take that dictionary and format it in JSON format, JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, so that index can work with it. Now, there's a very handy function that they've given you in Flask that will take any dictionary and wrap it in a JSON wrapper, and it's called JSONify. All right? So, in short, to complete articles, what you want to do is get the value of geo, look that up using lookup, and then take the output of that and pass it off to JSONify. All right? And that's articles in a nutshell. You can test it by basically, this is old, like now I think they've put in something called legacy.io or something, so this part of the URL is going to be a little bit different. But just go to the end of it and then just type in articles geo 02138, basically, just to test it. And if you do it, if it's working correctly, you should see it. Here, I can copy this and we'll go look at my, let's see. I think this is running here. See how it says IDE? This, if I just hit slash and type that, okay, maybe I didn't do this one yet, but ideally you would see a list of like articles. article titles. Basically, it'd be a direct literal printout of all the dictionaries. Basically, I think it's like link and then name, link and name, link and name. So you should just see text here if that's working properly. All right, then you go on to do search. Search is a little bit more complex in the sense that what you're doing is you're executing a select. Well, you're not doing it. The script is doing it. So you're working on application.py. There's also another file called scripts.js. It's a JavaScript thing, and you're going to be working on that after you do this part. And that script is essentially going to execute multiple select statements against whatever comes in. In this case, it's called Q. So Q, it's going to be request.args.get Q is going to be that value. It's passed into search as a get parameter. Could be your admin code, could be your postal code. All right, we don't know what it is, or a country code. It's going to be one of the fields in your database. Don't call it city, state, and zip because that's not what the fields are called in the database. Look at what the fields are actually called so that you can reference it properly in your select statement. Look at some examples here. This says select star from places where postal code equals Q, where Q is request.args.getQ. That basically is going to look for an exact match, postal code the same as Q. You can also say where postal code is like Q, and that will be something similar, okay? You can also use or, right? You could say where this is like this, or this is like this, or this is like this. So think about chaining clauses together in your select statement to get the appropriate results. And similarly to test search, just put in right after your username and your URL, search $Q equals, and then just try different things. And notice that when you have more than one word like cat bed or Cambridge plus MA, you use a plus sign to concatenate those two things. Okay? So that's articles and search. Scripts.js we'll go over a little bit more on Wednesday, but that's primarily involving markers. You're going to have to delve into the Google Maps API. Look at what Google says about how to add markers to a map and how to remove markers from a map and how to attach essentially a JSON formatted list of links and titles to that marker and have it display. All right, that's it. Thanks a lot. Good luck.